What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Alex Cuesta Show. How's everybody doing out there on this Wednesday, February 15th of 2023? Before we get into anything fun, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars on Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials. Go search the Alex Cuesta Show. We're all over the place. David, hi. You're still coming back every week.
Yeah, you say before we get into anything fun, but we're not the fun ones. It's our guests that are the fun ones. So,
yeah, I get to make fun of you though every week, so that's kind of fun.
That's true, but that's kind of normal.
But
I'm used to that.
Before we get into our guest, Dave, we have something really important we have to take care of right now with me and you. Who are we going to feud with? Because it seems like everyone on the right now is picking somebody to feud with within the right. And right now there's a lot of dumb stuff going on the right now. But so no, we need to pick it out. Who do you want to fight with?
There's a reason why I don't tweet. I just don't feel like arguing with people.
I don't know. We got to figure out. We got to pick someone on the right that we have to fight with. Now, speaking of people that are fighting, last week's episode, we had a fantastic episode. We had Jennifer McWilliams on. She's a parental rights consultant, works heavily within the sphere of fighting back social emotional learning, DIE, diversity, inclusion, equity within schools. Please go back, give that episode a listen. It was really important, really informational. And if you don't know where to start on the fight with getting back our schools, protecting our kids, that's a good place to start. So jump back there. This week, though, Dave, we have another awesome show. We have a fantastic guest. I am extremely excited to have on Michele Tafoya. You definitely know the name, especially if you're a sports fan. She's an Emmy-winning sports reporter and host of Sideline Sanity on the Salem Podcast Network. What's going on, Michele?
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Super excited to have you on. Again, you're someone that anyone that's ever watched a football game, a big primetime football game on NBC knows who you are, Michele. So it's really cool to have you on. I want to jump right in because sports reporting is something that I think a lot of people know you for. It's what I knew you for years. What got you started jumping into sports? Because what made you want to do it?
I just grew up on sports. My dad was a sports fanatic, and he raised us to be just like him. And he, took us to games, saved up to take us to the Olympics. Wow. He was a diehard 49er fan. We lived in LA, and we would commute to the games. We'd drive up and drive back, sometimes the same day to the games. And so I was just raised on it. And I'm so glad that I was. It just was such a fun passion growing up, sometimes too much, but too much passion, which can be painful. So it sort of married, sports reporting sort of married my two loves, which were journalism and sports. And I think I got in at right around a time where women were just really starting to, people had opened the door for us, and I decided to walk through and join them.
So what was that like? Because even though there were women opening the door, there's still a lot of nonsense.
My dog.
Oh, that's okay. We love puppies here. That's all right. You could bring the puppy in. The puppy could talk as well. But, at the time where even when you were jumping in and even now, there's still such a big stigma, right? With women calling male events at times. And there's some assholes out there, for lack of a better term, that are, saying things like that. What was it like for you, especially when you started out? Were you still finding that there was a large group of males that were kind of like Anchorman with Will Ferrell, like women don't belong in the newsroom? Like, did you see that was going on, or were they much more receptive?
No, it certainly was. I mean, now there isn't as much of a stigma. I think there are certainly tons more women doing this now than when I started out. Believe me, there were plenty of press conferences where I was the only female. My attitude, though, going in was this: I can look at myself as a woman trying to, compete in a man's world, or I can look at myself as a journalist competing in a journalism world. And I picked the latter. And I just said, I'm not going to put this as sort of like a hurdle in my own way. Why would I do that? Why would I try to make things tougher on myself? So just go work hard, be more prepared than anyone else, read more than anyone else, just outwork everyone. So I knew that I had to do that, right? I knew that in order to get somewhere, I did have to be more prepared, just outwork everyone, because I was one of the very, very few women doing it at the time. And I sure as hell didn't want to make mistakes and give anyone ammunition to say, see, she doesn't belong here.
Yeah.
So that made me work that much harder. But I took this sort of, I'm a woman competing. I took that out of it. To me, it just really doesn't matter. To me, you advance based on merit, and that's really the bottom line.
You just committed a cardinal sin. Your identity doesn't matter. Your immutable characteristic doesn't matter.
Not to me.
No.
I know, right? I'm so out of it these days. I'm so unwoke these days. I don't. I really can't stand identity politics, and I think I've kind of always been that way, or at least for the last 30 years. I think I've been that way since college. I'm sure I was a little more into that kind of thing. But I grew out of it. And I understand now that what differentiates you, what helps you be successful, is the willingness to put your ass on the line and to be prepared and to work your tail off every single day. Be consistent, be someone that they can't live without in whatever profession you're in. And you'll find success that way.
So how often were you kind of like tested by other reporters starting out where, you're inside of, the scrum in there waiting for the things. And obviously you guys are all in one group, right? With journalists. How often did you feel that like some of the guys in there were testing you with some of your knowledge about who you were covering or what you were doing? And did it kind of feel good when you like gave them an answer and aha'd them a little bit?
Here's a great moment. The NCAA tournament, I want to say 1993. This is a long time ago, right? So I had attended Cal Berkeley, and they had a really good team. Jason Kidd was their point guard, Jared Haas, a few other stars at the time. Mm-hmm. And they made the tournament. And I was working on sports talk radio in Charlotte, North Carolina. North Carolina, home of Duke, UNC, Wake Forest, NC State, all of those. Mm-hmm. And we were filling out our brackets on the air. And I'd seen Duke play. In fact, I'd seen the whole ACC tournament that year, and I'd also seen Cal play. They just absolutely creamed UCLA at Pauley Pavilion that season. So I said, I'm going to pick Cal to beat Duke and advance to the Elite Eight. They'll beat them in the Sweet 16. And everyone absolutely laughed in my face. Everybody, all the callers that called into the sports talk show are, you're picking with your heart, and I said, okay, let's see how it goes. Let's talk afterwards. Well, Cal won that game. They eliminated Duke from the tournament that season. And the next day on the radio, it was all like apologies and wow, we didn't give you enough credit. It was a pinnacle moment for me in my early career, because I more than proving it to other people, I proved to myself, you know what? You do know what you know, and you do know what you're talking about, and you do know the game, and you know sports, and you just showed it. So be okay with yourself. So like I said, that was very early on in my career. I took that chance, but it was something I genuinely believed, and it proved to be true.
I had to say your knowledge is good there, because that's not too far off of the UCLA dynasties that they had in college basketball. Mm-hmm. So they were still a really good team. So, so you picking that off your experience of seeing what Cal Berkeley did, that was more the local North Carolina people not being mad at you for not going with them. So your sports knowledge was good at that point. They were the ones picking with their hearts. I'll defend you here. So
there you go. That should have been the comeback. No, you people are picking with your hearts. Yeah.
UCLA just got done 3 years ago winning their like 8th national championship. What are you talking about? But so, that's an awesome point. So I have to ask, you have talked to and met the biggest stars to walk the planet in sports, right?
Yeah.
Who is your favorite interview? Who was it that every time you knew you were going to talk to them, you were just like, I love this person. I'm pumped to be able to speak to them.
Oh my gosh. There are too many to list, but the ones that jump out at the top, Brett Favre is among them. I got to do his Monday Night Football game when he was with the Vikings, and they beat the Packers. He beat the Packers for the first time. That made him the first quarterback in NFL history to defeat all 32 teams in the league.
Crazy.
And he beat Aaron Rodgers, and it was just a massive moment in the NFL. At that time, that was the most watched Monday Night Football game most watched, I think, event in cable TV history, because it was on ESPN. Was huge. Peyton Peyton Manning was always a joy. Drew Brees was a really good interview. Michael Jordan. I interviewed Michael Jordan once, and as was my habit, I would write thank you notes to all the people who gave me their time. And I just sent them out after my NBA week. And so the next time I was there to see Jordan, he said to me, "Are you the one that sent me the thank you note?" And I said, "Yes, that was me." And he said, "You can interview me anytime you want." And so he really appreciated that. And that showed me a lot about him, because I'm telling you, a lot of these big stars wouldn't have even opened their mail. The fact that he opened it, appreciated it, recognized it, and decided to reward it says so much about him. So, gosh, there are so many, you guys. I could just go on and on and on. And I hate leaving people out, because some of the names you'd go, really? Like Jordan Mailata, the offensive lineman for the Eagles, excuse me. And Mike Tomlin. Oh, meetings with Mike Tomlin and our Sunday Night Football crew were epic, just absolutely epic. So I could go on and on. There are just so many good ones.
So I have to ask that, because I got to look, and we get a look inside, because I watch One Jet Drive. I'm a big Jets fan. Unfortunately, you can ridicule me. That's okay. But
I'm not going to.
Watching One Jets Drive, I didn't know as much that there was always those big meetings with the whole entire media crew before big games. And we got a cool look inside and not even big games, just basically every game. You have, I saw like Zach Wilson meeting with a bunch of the crew and just going over things. And I guess that's how you guys get your stories that you tell on air and stuff, right?
Yeah. It's yes, go ahead.
So how fun was that? Just being able to be a part of those weekly and talking to all those different personalities, coaches, and things like that.
Well, it was great. I mean, and I did it for so long, which sometimes comes back to surprise me. And along the way, you really develop relationships. And part of that is through trust. When I was working in the NBA, Greg Popovich and I had a great relationship. And I know he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I love that man. Mm-hmm. We got along great because I never, ever misquoted him, ever. And I never misquoted anyone. I will tell you true. I made such a point of being so careful. And I check my notes with Chris and Al. You guys heard it this way, right? We all heard the same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, we were meticulous about that stuff. But those were great when you're especially when you're the primetime Sunday night or Monday night football game, and you're either with John Madden, as I was for 2 years, or Chris Collinsworth and Al, who's the best. You go into those meetings and there's just a comfort level. They all kind of like it too. Like you're talking to Al Michaels, he's a freaking legend. Yeah. You're talking to John Madden. Some of these coaches were just like, look at Madden and just kind of, you could tell there was this admiration and this awe. And they all like Chris too, because he's such an affable guy, and nobody works harder than Chris Collinsworth at his job. So we'd go in there, we'd have probably half an hour with the coach, maybe more, depending on the situation, same amount of time with the quarterback. And then we'd usually get one more offensive and one more defensive player. And oftentimes the coordinators would come in as well. It just depended on whether it was John or Chris or however we were doing it that week. So it was great. And then in addition to that, I had my own one-on-one interviews, whether it be by phone or in person, with a smattering of guys. And this is where Chris Jones of the Kansas City Chiefs keeps coming to my mind, because every time I met with Chris, he made me smile and laugh. He is the most lovable, fun guy on planet Earth. And so we had some great meetings, just one-on-one together. I absolutely adore that guy. Juju Smith-Schuster's and I, this is where I could go on and on. But
we love it. We love hearing all these stories. We do.
That was really fun. Those meetings were epic.
So you kind of stole my thunder with your last one there, talking about some Kansas City Chiefs. What type of relationship do you have with some of the current people? Andy Reid just seems like an absolute fun human being, just some of his comments and things like that. And, so what type of relationship do you have with some of the current Chiefs? You mentioned Juju, you mentioned, Jones, like a little more stories. We love story time.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about Andy Reid. When he was still in Philadelphia, and I was on the Monday night crew, and I think it was at the time Mike Tirico, Tony Kornheiser, I think it was Joe Theismann and Tony at that time, and Susie and I were the reporters. And for some reason, Susie and I were kind of sitting in the corner in this big meeting, and Andy, who I'd worked with for many years, said, Tafoya, what are you doing in the corner there? Come on up and sit next to me. My mom's, she would never have stood for this. And it was this moment where I knew what he was doing. He was trying to make sure that everyone in the room knew that he respected me and wanted me to participate. And I'll never forget that. And from that moment on, Andy and I had a very special relationship and still do. And I'm so happy for him with these Super Bowls.
Yeah.
Things like when we were walking out of the tunnel before a game, I think this was last season, I said, Andy, we saw you guys practicing this play in practice. What is the name of it? Can you just tell me the name of it in case you throw it out there? He's getting ready to go coach a game, and I'm getting ready to go on the air. And he gave me the name of the play.
Wow.
And then he winked at me, and we were able to use that in the broadcast. I mean, that's just like, that stuff is golden. And so I just, so then when Andy found out I was leaving the NFL, he was so great about it. Bill Parcells is another one who recently sent me a text and said, gosh, I miss you on the sidelines. Wow. But as far as Kansas City goes, I mean, Patrick Mahomes is just a great all-around guy. I think he is great to everybody that he meets. So I admire the heck out of him. Travis Kelce is...
A question about Patty real quick.
Yeah.
Have you met Patty's family? Because I know there's so much big things about his brother, about, his significant other. Like, have you met them? Can we squash any stigmas about them that might be out there? Like, have you had a chance to maybe meet some of the family and stuff like that?
I've met his wife on the sidelines. She's always down there during the pregame, and he always gives her a kiss before he leaves the field. It's very sweet. I've talked to his mom. That's about all that I know. I know they're a very private family, and that's another part of them that I respect a lot.
That's awesome. So
Chris Jones, Travis Kelce, I mean, there are a bunch of those guys. They're just, and I think in Kansas City, Kansas City and Green Bay are kind of similar this way, right? The whole town is about that team. But it's not New York. It's not LA. It's not San Francisco. It's not Detroit. It's not Miami. So they are sort of grounded in a way, and it makes them very accessible. A lot of fun.
That's fantastic. So you spend all this time in sports. You have a great career in sports. You're an award-winning journalist, one of the most well-known people in the sports world. And then, boom, it drops. You're leaving the NFL. You're leaving sports. You're jumping into the world of politics. I don't know. There are not many people that actually make the active choice to go away and jump into politics. Now, I have to bring up, you had a few episodes on The View that ended up getting a lot of notoriety. I have to ask, when you were going on to The View, when you were booked to go with them, did they know your politics at the time that you were going on?
I think so. I think they knew that I leaned a little more. Well, I have to say almost everyone leans a little more conservative than they do. But I think that they knew that I did. I mean, I was sort of filling that conservative chair, and they were looking to fill that conservative chair, the one, brave soul on the panel. So yes, they knew. I don't think that they knew how solid I was in my beliefs and in my own, how comfortable I was in my own skin. And, but I will tell you this, Sunday Night Football would not have let me go on The View if it hadn't been my last season on Sunday Night Football. Like, we talked about it. They knew there was a risk reward thing here. And none of us wanted to court controversy on Sunday Night Football. None of us. And I understood that, and I respected that. This is the crown jewel of NBC, period, the end, And so you don't want to bring that to the show. So I wasn't going on there with the purpose of being controversial at all. But again, I remember my producer saying to me, I'll let you do it, but if this weren't your last season, I probably wouldn't let you because it could follow you, So then once I did those few days, he goes, you're not doing any more this season. So I did a few more after the Super Bowl because we all knew, I had given my notice to Sunday Night in 2018. So this was a thing in progress. Listen, I come from a background where my dad is Hispanic, was, rest his soul. My mom, both my parents grew up dirt poor during the Depression. And they both managed to go to college and live the American dream and raise 4 kids and send 4 kids to college. And I was the youngest. And I feel like that American dream is still out there. And some people are being told that it's not available to them for those immutable characters. And I fervently disagree. And I mean, I get emotional about this because this started back, like I told you, even before 2018, when I gave notice, I was feeling so upset about the division in this country, this unbelievable country that we're so lucky to call home. And I felt like I had to be part of the conversation. And I couldn't be as long as I was on Sunday Night Football. And I knew that. And so I had to make this very tough decision. But honestly, and I know this sounds really Pollyanna and really, this is the God's honest truth. I couldn't go on not talk. I couldn't be muffled anymore. I couldn't. To me, it was more important to be able to speak my mind about something hugely important. And I don't know if that I'm changing any minds or making any difference, but I couldn't not try. I couldn't just sit back and enjoy doing sports, seeing this happen all around me. I could not. Physically, I'd wake up every morning and go, I gotta talk. So that's kind of what happened. And that's what made the decision for me. And it was tough to walk away from all the good things, all the many good things I had at Sunday Night Football. But look, I've taken a massive pay cut, but it's with a purpose in mind. And I've got kids that I want to grow up in the country that I know and love.
Yeah. And on a much like smaller scale, because obviously you do have a massive influence. You have a big name. People know who you are. So when you speak, people do listen. But Dave and I had a similar thing where, we are very strong in our convictions. And we were doing kind of a show where we talked more about sports, pop culture, mixed in some politics. But then it came to a point where we both said like, hey, we know what we know. We're not dummies. We may not have a huge influence, but it would be wrong if we didn't try. We didn't do our part. So just hearing what you said, you are changing minds, whether you know it or not. The one thing you probably know in journalism that you were probably taught is there are people that think like you out there. You just have to put it out there. So we appreciate that's a sacrifice. You took a big chance and a big risk leaving something as successful as you did to jump into basically being the villain to a lot of people.
Yeah, to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I will say, I do want to say real quick, and it doesn't have to be about changing minds. And the fact that you actually took like you said, a pay cut to speak your mind on something, that choice shows to people that, listen, if you want to speak on something, go do it. Go speak on something. You don't have to change someone's mind. If it allows people to say, you know what, maybe it's okay for me to say what I actually believe, at least a little bit.
Yeah,
at least a little bit.
Right, at least a little bit. And I'll tell you something. One of the most amazing moments, I had just done The View, and I was going to the airport to fly home afterwards, and I was just feeling down. I felt like, gosh darn it, am I really the only person who believes the way I do? Okay, so I'm at the airport and I'm going through my emails and I get this DM on Twitter or something. And he goes, Michele, I just saw you on The View. I'm a 28-year-old gay man who lives in Philadelphia. And normally I just agree with everything the women say, but you won me over today.
Wow.
I think you said a lot of really common sense things, and I admire you and I'm cheering for you. And I was like, I almost started to cry because I thought just the fact that I connected with someone that I don't even know, was so gratifying. It was amazing. And so, those little kind of moments that make you, and also, just people that I know who are afraid, who are genuinely afraid in the United States of America, where we have free speech. They're afraid to talk. They're afraid to post. They're afraid to tweet. And I want to try to, encourage them all.
Yeah. And, and that's the beauty of social media at times, right? Because without social media, you don't get that DM. And, to be quite honest, me and you don't connect without social media.
Right. That's actually,
I reached out to you and you were gracious enough to agree to come on the show. And that's the way I get a lot of the guests. I just kind of reach out, and the ones that are gracious enough to jump on, I love to have on. I do have to ask. So on The View, they're certainly claws out with their single conservative female that they have on there, right?
Yeah.
Outside of the when the cameras are off, are they at least nice to you?
I'd say that, yes, they were very gracious.
Or were they fake? Or what would you say? Like, are they legitimately nice to you? Are they happy to be there? Or is it just kind of like saving face nice?
I think that they were, I had some good interactions with each one individually.
Mm-hmm. Good luck. You had good interactions with Joy Behar. Oh my God.
Well, it was interesting. It was a really eye-opening experience. They were nice enough to host me on that show. And all I can say is there's a pretty big gap between our way of thinking about a lot of things.
Yeah, and I do go ahead. Sorry.
No. You go.
I do gotta say, like my brother just said, them off the cameras or on the cameras, like how did they act? It is very interesting seeing a bunch of these women who were probably more just normally liberal, not 10, 20 years ago. And you could look at some of the actions and some of the things that they were fine with at a time, especially like Whoopi and other people. Yeah. And then the way they are now, where it's like they just seem to be completely leftist now instead of just normally liberal. Right. Where that's why it's very interesting. It's like, are they playing it up for the cameras, or did they really just shift this far?
No, I think there's been a shift in this country, and I think you're seeing it. I don't think it's fake what they're portraying up there, because I was in meetings with them every morning as we went through the rundown and how are we going to address this and who's going to talk about what. And I can tell you, it was genuine. This is who they are. They're not being inauthentic up there. They are their authentic selves. But it does make you think. I mean, the show, it doesn't even really have a spectrum. It has one side and the other. Yeah. And the other side is just one human. Yes. And so it's a challenge, and it's I think it misrepresents society. I really do. I don't think society is divided that way, and I don't think it's so that if you had a group of 5 people over for a party, that 4 of them would be basically leftists, not liberals. These are illiberals now at this point. Yes. I mean, the way that they pounce on people, they call themselves feminists and they pounce on Nikki Haley. They only seem to want to support women who are on their side. They called Clarence Thomas someone who, quote, does not represent the Black community. Okay, so it's not about skin color then. It's not. It's about ideology. I mean, that's plain and simple.
You got Larry Elder, the white face of the black face of white supremacy. Yeah, so, exactly. And there are probably people that believe that. So you go on, you officially make the switch to jump into politics, right? What was the response from friends, family, former fans, and not only jumping into politics? Because if you jumped in and all of a sudden you're just like, Pete Buttigieg for president, everyone would be like, yay, Michelle,
we
awesome.
Love you, Michelle.
You're great. Yeah, come on. But you decided to jump in and become evil. And, and so what was the response from people that maybe didn't know your politics, or always like, yeah, Michelle leans a little right, she's more traditional? But what was the response from people? Did you get generally negative responses, especially from people you knew in the sports business, or was
there were a few? Yeah,
you thought?
Look, I got from both sides, but it's interesting. The people on the left will hammer me publicly to no end. The people now, I'm talking about known people, quote unquote, celebrities, public figures. Public figures on the right, unless they're, really out, what they do is they DM me on Twitter and they say, gosh, dang, I'm so glad you're doing this. I wish I could talk the way you're talking. Thank you for saying this. I'm telling you, that's been pretty interesting. And it makes me sad. Or like people say
the term that they're out. Like it's like they're coming out of the closet. I'm coming out, guys. I'm conservative.
Well, and listen, so Aaron Rodgers and I, had a connection I covered him since he was a rookie, and he went to Cal, I went to Cal. So we had that connection right away, and we've stayed in close touch, and we're friends. And he has been DMing me and saying encouraging things. And, he recently came out and said, yeah, I guess I'm the villain, for the way that I think. He's a common sense guy. I wouldn't say he's left, right, or whatever. I'd say he's probably pretty independent.
He's a space cadet, and I love that he's a space cadet.
He's super, super smart. But here's the thing. He is he's been talking about cancel culture for years. Like he can't stand it. He can't believe that this happens. And so he was recently on with Pat McAfee, as he tends to do, and he was talking about how people get so offended. Yeah. And so I tweeted him, I said, I love the way that you said so offended. I'm so offended. And he writes me back and he says, yeah, you know it as well as I do now. We're the villains. And I said, yeah, we villains have to stick together. Because, and he has said that publicly. People think he's a villain for all the stuff about COVID and all the rest. What I think we are is just really authentic people who are brave enough to speak out. And Aaron's never going to be canceled. And I think I think people allow themselves to be canceled when they apologize and back down. And I wish people wouldn't do that.
Yeah. And, you talked about how there's prominent figures that are conservative that are afraid to say it. And we saw it for the longest time when we finally found out that the Friends of Abe existed in Hollywood. And it's that's ridiculous that they had to go and meet in secret to talk about their political views. Yeah. It's not like they were sitting there like the Weather Underground meeting in secret as leftists trying to blow shit up. They were just having a difference in political opinion. And, I'm happy that a lot more of them are like, yeah, screw it. Like, we're conservative. And I think some people have suffered. Like, I haven't seen Vince Vaughn in a movie in how long now? I think that has a lot to do with the fact that he is now an open conservative, right? And I think those types of things happen, and it's unfortunate. But, it's just interesting to see the amount of bravery of people like yourself to take a big chance. But like you said, you're not willing to apologize for your values. So you are now always going to be able to speak because you're not letting people shut you down. And I know I don't agree with everything on J.K. Rowling, but she is a perfect example of someone you can't cancel her because I think most of her politics are stupid, but I agree with her that women are women and that trans women are not women, and that's just how it is. And even though she is a leftist in every other way, like if Karl Marx was resurrected, she would probably date him. Like she is a commie, but she's standing on her values there, and I can appreciate that. I think people on the right should take an example of people like yourself, like J.K. Rowling, Aaron Rodgers, and people like that you can't cancel people that just continue to speak. And don't apologize.
And don't apologize, because if you back down once, then they chase you down harder the next time and the next time. But then before you know it, you're cowering in the corner in the fetal position. And that's just that's no way to live. I recently had a speaking engagement canceled because I had said something about something or other. And I told my husband, I said, yeah, they canceled this one. And he said, that should embolden you more. I said, it does. I said, if anything, it makes me want to say, you know what? My ability to voice my opinions and my beliefs is worth far more than that speaking engagement or any paycheck associated with it. And I think that's what's getting lost. And the fact of the matter is, when people want to cancel you, they just call you names. Now, if you can let that hurt you. I mean, it hurts to be called a racist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, whatever they want to call. And they call you all those phobes, right? To make you sound awful. But that's all they've got is name calling. They don't really counter you with proof or discussion or civil debate. So they just shout you down and call you names because that's all there is. That's all they can do. So if you succumb to that, you are going to be miserable. If you say, whatever, you think that's what I am. I know what I am. I don't care what you think I am, because I know myself, I know my heart, and the people who love me know me and know my heart. And that's really all that matters. I mean, that's priceless. That's power. Don't give it away.
Yeah. And most of the time it's projection, right? If we know anything about the left, and especially in this country, they have always been the party of racism and bigotry and segregation and Ku Klux Klan. And we can go down their history as far as we can. So it usually is always projection. And Dave and I like to talk about the power of when somebody is saying something outright incorrect, people don't know how to handle when you just look at them and say, no, you're wrong. Yeah. They don't know what to do anymore because they expect you to come out and try and defend your side and make a counterpoint. And there's a lot of power in just look at them and saying, you're wrong. Because then they don't know how to defend themselves. Like you said, they have no counter. They have no, and there's a very few intellectual leftists that then try to, use word games and dumb little studies that they did with their own buddies last year and try to bring it back up. But
there's a study for everything, isn't there?
Yeah. When, we got to believe the experts, man. Believe the experts. They've been so right. And believe the government, because we might have UFOs now and a lot of things going on. So right now, there's a lot of infighting on the right. And it's not only in the things that we mentioned earlier with political commentary, but it's also with this presidential election coming up. As of now, I believe there's only two presidential candidates on the right. It's Donald Trump and Nikki Haley. I don't think anybody else is officially announced. But the rift has been between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis. And no disrespect to Nikki Haley, unless something astronomical occurs, I don't know how well her chances are. But how do you feel about the current, battle going on with the right between, Team DeSantis, Team Trump? Is it even time right now to do that with all the other things going on?
It's amazing how fast these political cycles, because these election cycles fly by. I mean, my gosh, we just got through a midterm and we're already talking about 2024, and rightfully so, honestly, because you learn a lot from each cycle. I wrote an open letter to Donald Trump on my Substack before he announced, and I said, please don't. Please stay out. If you love this country, stay out. Now, I've said it publicly and I'll say it again. I voted for Trump against Hillary Clinton. There was no way I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton. And anyone who said you're anti-woman, screw you. I'm a woman. I would have voted for Condoleezza Rice in a heartbeat, but not
it's more
Hillary
like
Clinton.
Anti-devil at that point.
Yeah, well, there's that. Yeah. And then, with Biden, I just thought, good Lord, I thought we'd be in a better place with Biden than we are. I never thought it could be as bad as it's become. It is horrific out there. And I put him squarely responsible for so much of it. And I could list, but I'm not going to. So I wrote this open letter to Donald Trump saying, you know what? You're divisive. You've got baggage. Your policies are one thing, but what you bring that separates us is another. And I just don't think it's good for the country. We need some sort of more of a, I don't know if centrist is the right word, but someone without the baggage. And again, you look at what Ron DeSantis did in his second election down there in Florida and how he made it ruby red. I'm not asking for every state to turn ruby red, but there's a reason he gets stuff done. We have a place down there, and we were in Fort Myers when the whole hurricane hit Fort Myers. He gets things done. He doesn't allow the press to bully and badger him. He'll stand up to them with a straight spine. He's got a military background. There's a lot to him that I really like. And I just think he shows up without that baggage, without January 6th and all the other crap that people want to remain stuck to Donald Trump. So, but here we are.
Being the seasoned conservative I am, I maybe going to push back a little bit on your divisive comment, because I get Trump is a divisive guy, right? That's kind of his tactic. He makes a lot about himself. He's very boisterous. But when has a prominent Republican not been divisive to the mainstream media? When have it's made that way. George W. Bush is as milquetoast and as centrist of a Republican as you are ever going to get outside of being a war hawk, right? Which every uniparty member in Washington is a war hawk. But a lot of his policies were not on the right. But if you could go back and, I was younger during the Bush times, but my dad was very political, so I always paid attention. They said the same damn things that they said about Donald Trump, about George Bush, maybe outside of not being a womanizer, but they kind of called him a drug addict and a loser for smoking weed in college, right? And the difference between Trump and Bush is that Bush just kind of took it, right? Bush was the old school of, no, you just got to be above it. And Trump brought that fresh breath air of saying, screw you, no, well, incorrect. Go ahead.
And I agree and I think that's a big part of what got him elected the first time was that, again, he was saying, come, bring it on. Yeah. Bring it at me. I'm not bowing to political correctness. And I'm going to say out loud all the things that everyone's afraid to say. I'll say it. I'll take the bullets for you, and now you can be emboldened to say things too.
Yeah.
I totally get that. I totally get that.
So my fear of Ron DeSantis, and I like what Ron DeSantis has done in Florida. He's fantastic. My biggest fear is he served in Washington before. He was, again, member of the Freedom Caucus, founding member. Love that. But he has been in Washington. He's a part of the game. He's a seasoned career politician. And I don't know. I'm old enough to remember when you don't trust a single one of them, where there was no such thing as a good politician. There are politicians you like more than others because they agreed with you and they did some policies that you enjoyed, but you knew that each and every single one of them was going to lie to you, right? That was just kind of the assumption. And now all of a sudden, since Donald Trump, politicians are honest people. And for me, I just kind of can't jive with that. And I guess the one thing that, again, I'm not siding on Trump or DeSantis at all right now. My whole thing is let them battle it out. May the best person win and let us get the best candidate out there, right? But for me, it's like, I'm not willing to trust Ron DeSantis. He's done great things in Florida, but we've seen people do great things and get on a federal stage and they've been terrible, and vice versa. So that's kind of, and with Trump, you still know what you're going to get with Trump, and Trump's foreign policy and the things he did foreign were incredible. Don't get enough credit.
Don't get enough credit. The Abraham Accords, all of that, you're absolutely right.
And Ron DeSantis has no foreign policy experience outside of he worked in the Congress. Don't get me wrong, but do you know what Ron DeSantis' foreign policy is? I don't.
I can't say right now that I do, but I'd love to hear it. And
absolutely,
it's going to be really interesting. And I don't disagree with the stuff you're saying. Like I said, I was pretty much on Trump's side on policy throughout. I mean, things were going pretty well before the old COVID hit. Things were going really well for the economy, foreign policy. You felt like someone strong was in that office, and I. He did that all facing headwinds every single moment of every single day.
Impeachments.
Those little headwinds of impeachment. So no, I do get what you're saying. I think though, if you want to win an election and you want to get those independent voters, I'm just not sure they're going to go for him again.
Yeah, and that's definitely a thing. I think if we got more old school Trump, this new Trump, I don't think is going to win a lot of people over. The Trump that is still toting vaccines, still giving liberals interviews, still looking like he's cozying up to neocons like Lindsey Graham, and the people that we all criticized him for bringing into his cabinet, right? Because he didn't bring in strong America First people into his cabinet. He brought in John Bolton. He brought in, some people that were extremely questionable and pushed away others. And he hasn't given a lot of his people indication he might do different. So I feel like pushing the vaccines is going to hurt him. If he continues to talk out positive about that, keeps on talking about that he won the second election, whether you won or not, Biden's getting his 4 years unless the Democrats successfully push him out, which they're trying to do. And then I think he just keeps on cozying up to the wrong people. If Lindsey Graham wants to come and greet you in South Carolina, you tell him to wait in line. You don't bring him onto the stage. Screw Lindsey Graham. Like, he is the most two-faced person in Congress outside of Mitch McConnell. So it's like.
So let me ask you this: if we had a clean slate, it doesn't sound like you would jump up and say Nikki Haley for president. Is there anyone out there? If Donald Trump happened to just say forget it, and Ron DeSantis said forget it, is there anyone? I mean, it's really difficult to find someone who is not. Trump obviously was that guy who was never in politics before, but is there another one?
Would I be disqualified if I said Michael Malice?
Want someone to disband the federal government?
Just put an anarchist in there and let's just do it. Let's just get it done with. Right now, probably not, because outside, like if you're looking at the people that may run, Mike Pompeo, no, especially with what we've learned about what the intel services have been doing and capable of, and so I don't know. There might have to be another Trump that runs. Maybe if Eric Trump jumps in and starts being like his dad, just a much less baggaged version. But yeah, no, if there's a clean slate and there's no one else there, No, I don't see another strong candidate possibly outside of DeSantis and Trump. And I hope I'm surprised because, but you never know. But out of those two, I still would like our chances in the next election out of those two.
All right. Fair enough.
Dave, do you have anything to add outside of me saying Michael Mouse?
No, not really. Michael Mouse is a fantastic choice. That'd be hilarious. but I will say, it's like I'm more on the waiting game with this as well. Yeah. I just want to see what happens because DeSantis hasn't even declared yet. He's not saying much back to Trump whenever Trump's kind of like going after him a little bit,
which is smart.
Getting ready for the primaries. Yeah. So I'm on the waiting game for this, but I am interested to see what their winning strategies are because, like, I agree that new Trump, I don't think that's going to fly with a lot of people.
No.
But the thing that Trump has, the only thing that Trump has that he could really rely on, if he's smart enough, he'd keep relying on it consistently and not even talk about anything else, is the fact of the matter is that you could afford eggs under him. So like that's the whole thing.
And
you
gasoline,
could afford basically anything and everything under him. So just keep touting that. Because I'm going to tell you right now, unless his team fixes anything with the economy, people are going to want that back. They will go with Trump for that kind of economy over almost anyone because they know it happened.
Well, that's the
only. Yeah,
that's a great
point.
The
only thing.
And because here's the thing about him. You mentioned him touting the vaccines. Boy, is he up against it with that? Because if he doesn't, I mean, look, he's the one that Operation Warp Speed was his thing. He got the vaccine, so he took pride in that. I think for him to flip, I don't know what that would do.
So Donald Trump team, if you're listening, here's your strategy on that. You don't flip. What you do say is anyone and everyone in my position outside of a pocket would have done the same damn thing. We didn't know much about COVID. Everyone was panicking about coronavirus. From everyone to a T said a vaccine would be a great thing right now. So I did what I thought was right and I pushed this. Now, in retrospect, what we're seeing now, these vaccines aren't what I thought they were going to be, but I am not backing down on my thought process of getting this done for the American people. I did what I thought was right, as I will always do. That's all he needs to say.
Yeah, I think that's really smart, and I'm just not sure he has it in him. I don't know. So he's very brash. It's going to be kind of one direction or the other, and there's not a lot of middle ground.
Yep. And I'll say
that's why I just say ignore it. If you're Trump and you're not able to do that, just ignore it and talk about everything good that you've done and everything good that you're planning to do. You can just ignore it. Everyone does ignore their bad things in politics. You can absolutely do that.
And I'll say the last thing, on this. For Ron DeSantis, if he isn't confident that he can beat Trump in this cycle, he shouldn't even run. Main reason, if Trump does to DeSantis what he does to every candidate that runs against him, and he can make them sweat and look like a fool on national television, his chances of being president are over in the future. Look what it did to Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Jeb Bush, every single person that tried to come against him, that really tried to go at him. No one thinks that Ted Cruz is a serious presidential candidate anymore at all. And Ted Cruz is a very qualified human being. The guy could be Supreme Court justice. He's that qualified.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no one thinks of him because Trump undressed him. Marco Rubio, his best contribution right now is making sure we find out what's up with UFOs and aliens. And he's doing a fantastic job with that. But it's like, he just undresses people on that debate stage. And if DeSantis isn't confident that he can outright beat Trump, then there's no point running, because that's what Trump's going to do to him too. He's going to try to.
He's going to try. It's going to be quite the dance to run it for anyone to run against Trump. It's going to be interesting how far he's willing to go with Nikki Haley. But it's going to be fascinating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He'll just basically like he's gonna tell her he created her. That's what Trump does. He's like, I made you. I put you in the UN. You were nobody. You were just a little governor. And then I made you. And now look at you. You're not loyal either. Neither is Florida Ron over here. Like, I can already see what he's gonna do. Like, the playbook is there. I feel like I should help run Trump's campaign. Brad Pascal, get out of here. But
maybe you should.
Maybe I would make a lot of enemies and friends. But so I want to just ask you, what are the most important topics to you right now? that we should be focusing on and fighting against? I know we just had some fun talking about Trump, but I do want to get a little more serious because you're very passionate about the things you've come out and talked about. What are some of the main things that you think that if you're somebody listening right now and you're kind of scratching your head like this world is crazy, I see it falling apart, I go to conservative media and they're going about this, then I go to CNN, it's completely different, I don't know what I should focus on. Yeah. What should we focus on fighting right now?
I think there are probably 4 things and maybe 5. One is China. And I would really love to see more people like the mayor in North Dakota and his city council say, no, you can't buy our land. Sorry. Yes. I would love to see more manufacturers disentangle themselves. I would like to see these sports, the NBA and Major League Baseball, they're sports washing China is what they're doing. They're sports washing them. We need to pay attention to China. They are, I think, our biggest adversary. They have no love for us. And anyone that thinks that they're innocent and polite and kind and, not committing atrocities every day they've got their head in the sand. Number 2 is the border. It's an absolute wreck. I can't even believe how bad it is. And if we are a country, we should be a country that has borders and has standards for letting people into our country, like every other country on God's green earth has. Mm-hmm. I'm baffled. I'm absolutely astonished at what is going on, not only with people, but with the drugs and the cartels just running that border. It's an absolute joke. It's a travesty. I can't say enough about it. I think education, I'm a big school choice proponent. I was raised in the public schools. My mom was a public school teacher. She and I still talk about how disappointing this is, how this this government-run schooling in America has gone south. And really for certain kids more than others. The achievement gap is ridiculous. It's unacceptable. It's inexcusable. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with the unions. It has to do with the priorities of the teachings that are going on in academic institutions all over the country. So, those are the top 3 for me right now. But and energy. Energy is the minute that Biden walked into that Oval and discontinue the Keystone Pipeline. Now, they'll sit here and say to you, if we started up the Keystone Pipeline right now, it wouldn't make a difference. No, you know what made a difference? Was when you sent the signal that you are going to war against energy that's produced here in America. And now he's going to release 26 million more barrels out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. I thought that was for like when we're at war or when there's a natural disaster, that this is our emergency oil. This isn't for sale. Mm-hmm. This approach to energy in America is sickening to me, and it's written off a lot of people. And so, those are the pillars for me.
I love it. And I think each and every single one of those are important. And you hitting on the energy thing is, a lot of people, it does get a lot of talk, but it seems to be being pushed into the back burner with a lot of other things that are going on, right? But we've heard about the fight against fossil fuels and all these things going on. And doesn't it seem a little bit too convenient that all of a sudden we need to keep on releasing our emergency reserves, and they're going, and we're really not replenishing them. And now we're pushing for more EV all the time and just not caring about the environment over in other countries that are mining all this stuff for batteries and destroying things there, as long as we can feel good about our electric, right? And that our coal miners can keep working, because they talk about coal. They're never getting rid of coal with all the electric that we're pushing out. But it is really important that what you're saying with the energy, and it just does, to be conspiratorial, it really does seem convenient. It's not conspiracy, because we have places like the World Economic Forum flat out saying that they want to get rid of fossil fuels. So it's not even a conspiracy to think that Biden's just playing their game and like, hey, America's about to release everything that we have outside of what we directly produce. And it is sickening. It is very sickening.
It is. I think we've just given up our spot as the strongest country on God's green earth, and the most generous, the best, the most exceptional, the country that excels with innovation, because we're bowing down to this green agenda. So, hey, we all want to conserve the beauty of this country. We all want clean water. We all want clean air, all of those things. That doesn't mean that then we turn to young children mining lithium in some foreign country in order to run our EVs to feel good about ourselves. It's embarrassing, to be quite honest.
Yeah. And, we're not afraid to call it what it is in this program. It is another version of Marxism. That's all it is. We are being basically supplanted and put into another version of Marxism. They're trying to figure out a way, and they're succeeding in destroying the free market. And, you mentioned education. It starts there, where we're teaching our teachers that, teaching critical theories is the best way to do it, and things that Paulo Freire taught with generative themes and all this type of stuff. And, it is sickening. And your 4 pillars that you mentioned are extremely important. I think that's where everybody should start if they really want to get going in this fight. And if, if listening to us doesn't give you courage, just 2 average Joes talking about what we know, putting ourselves out there, listen to someone like Michele. Michele gave up a dream. Plenty of us, a dream job. My dream job has always been to work in sports. I love sports. I certainly don't want to work in sports anymore, because I feel like I'd walk in there, they'd have like CNN on, I'd scoff, and they'd like kick me out. So I certainly don't want to now, until it kind of gets back on a little more of a track. But someone like you should be an inspiration to just every common person that it is worth the fight. The future of this country, our children, yourself, your freedom as a person. It is worth the fight. It's worth speaking out.
It is. The more power you give this government, the less you have of your own. And eventually, you're going to find out how awful that is.
I go back, Michael Malice 2024, get rid of it. Hey. So on that note, Michele, thank you so much for coming on. This was a blast.
Thanks for having me. It was good to talk to you guys. Nice to meet you. And thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Once again, she's Michele Tafoya. She's Emmy-winning sports reporter, host of Sideline Sanity on the Salem Podcast Network. Before we go, talk a little bit about Sideline Sanity. What is it that you're doing there?
Yeah, this is the stuff we talk about all the time, whether it's critical race theory, whether it's school choice, whether it's energy, we just talk about a lot of stuff. I'd encourage people to subscribe. You can find us wherever you download your podcasts, and they're nice little chunks. You're usually right around 30 minutes, something you can listen to on a walk or a commute.
Very cool.
And so subscribe. That's what I'm told I have to say. So there we go.
Yes, please.
Rate 5 stars.
Rate 5 stars.
Rate 5 stars.
My whole spiel I do at the beginning, right? We got to beg, but
there you go.
But
Amen.
certainly, if you liked what you heard here, go subscribe to Sideline Sanity. Michele's awesome. You'll love what you hear there. Dave,
I do want to say one real quick thing.
Yeah,
if you do not know what's going on in, I believe it's East Palestine, Ohio, whatever the hell is going on there, because I don't even know very much, but I have seen pictures, and if even one of those pictures is correct, then something very bad is happening in that area. Something very bad is happening to the people in that area because of the train derailment and whatever chemicals probably exploded. So look it up, find out what's happening. And if you do have any extra thing to spare, I'm sure there's probably a way to donate or try to help those people, because it's a really, really bad situation that's not getting talked about enough.
Yeah, I agree. That's great.
From what I know, it was supposed to be a controlled explosion of a major carcinogen, which sounds great, right? Let's explode a major deadly carcinogen. Yeah.
I'm just...
Thank you, Joe Biden. You guys are doing awesome.
Yeah. This is Joe Biden's America, everyone. And his cabinet and his vice president are just as responsible.
But 21 more billion to Ukraine. Let's do it, guys. Let's keep on sending it over there. Forget about Ohio. Forget about East Palestine. Let's forget about that. Anyway, on that happy note, thank you everyone for listening. We really appreciate it. Like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars. Spread this word of mouth. Find us on the socials. We will be back next week. So long, everybody.